Dr. Sharif Abdullah offers a unique, hopeful, and visionary perspective on the persistent challenges of our time. His perspective is shaped by his urban upbringing of poverty and violence, his Ivy League education, and his work with impacted communities in America and in 45 countries around the world. His spiritual outlook is rooted in the consciousness of dozens of religions, faith traditions, and spiritual practices. Sharif offers this unique viewpoint, helping us chart a course that explains where we've been, where we are now, and how we get to a positive future that works for all living beings.
Hello, Sharif here. And today I'm doing something that I'm doing a little bit reluctantly. The people who helped me organize these videos, these short videos, posed a challenge to me, and I am reluctantly accepting the challenge. The challenge was take all the stuff that I've been talking about and apply it to a real-world situation and suggest the solution to this real-world situation. And the real-world situation that we're taking is the situation of homelessness and its surrounding challenges. I can't do it in one video, but I can do it in two. This is my the challenge is do this in two videos. The way that we're looking at the problem, and we need to look at the problem together in a particular way. The folks up in Seattle, Washington, did an excellent video called Seattle is Dying that looks at their homelessness issue. Looks pretty much just like Portland's homelessness issue and what I've heard in terms of San Francisco and other towns. So I encourage you to stop this video right now, and below my image here in the comment section there is a link to the Seattle is Dying video. I would urge you to look at this, okay? It is a very thorough way of looking at the problem from a breaker perspective, which means from that perspective, they'll never solve the problem. You'll never even begin to get there. So I would invite you to stop here, look at the video, come back to here. I'm assuming that you just did that. And so I will tell you the problems inherent with that, with the kind of thinking of the director, of the announcer, of the camera people. All of us are caught in this way of thinking. We have to transcend that thinking in order to solve the problem. You've heard me say 500,000 times the Einstein quote, we can't address the problem with the same level of consciousness that created the problem. He said it a little bit differently in my book, Creating a World That Works for All, where he said, the unleashed power of the atom has changed everything except our modes of thinking, and thus we drift toward unparalleled catastrophes. We shall require a substantially new manner of thinking if humanity is to survive. In this video, I'm going to go through what's wrong with the old manner of thinking on this very specific issue of homelessness and its related issues. In the next video, I'm going to go through what will the new thinking yield us. What we're seeing over and over in the Seattle is Dying video is people saying, I don't want to see this. I don't want this to happen, and I don't want it to happen around me. This is the consciousness that gave us ghettos. And having been from one of the big East Coast ghettos in Camden, New Jersey, I know what it feels like on the inside of it. The problem is still there, but good middle-class people don't have to see it. So what we were seeing in this Seattle is Dying video is make the problem go away. I don't really want to see what you do to make it go away. I don't really want to know this, but just make it so I am not affected by this anymore. Another thing you saw in the Seattle is Dying video is the suggestion that we can arrest people and arrest our way out of the problem. That in the failure of command and control, we turn to more command and more control. And I've heard this said in more blatant ways than in this particular video. I've heard people say, all we have to do is take the handcuffs off the police and let them do what? Beat heads in? Kill people? Roust the homeless encampments? Make the homeless encampment move from over here to over there, and then from over there to over there, and then back over to here. As though that gets rid of homelessness. If you saw the video, you saw some very disturbed people acting out in the middle of the streets. We call that mental illness, but it's not. It's spiritual illness. This is the kind of illness that comes from people who know in a deep way that they do not belong to the society that they're inhabiting. The guy that was literally sitting in the trash can screaming and fighting the police. And the police themselves, both of these groups know that they don't fit in society anymore. And the solution for a lot of the cops is, I'm gonna go through the numbers. I'm gonna do my job. I'm just gonna kind of plow full speed ahead and ignore all this. Get to the earliest point where I can retire and forget all of this. Everyone is dreaming about having the small farm outside of the city where you simply don't encounter that anymore. And that is breaker thinking. That is the epitome of breaker thinking. I don't want to see this. And if I'm not seeing it, the problem doesn't exist anymore. This is called creating a world that works for me, not creating a world that works for all. If you saw the video, you saw the criminal justice system, the deterrence system that deters nothing, where people are so far outside of the society that threatening them with jail, great, 3 square meals a day. Threatening them with fines, I'm not going to pay them, and then you'll put me in jail, well, 3 square meals a day. The criminal justice system is overwhelmed because it can't be an answer to the kind of societal and spiritual problems that we've got. The police are overwhelmed because they cannot be an answer to the kinds of societal and spiritual problems that we've got. The police are just as overwhelmed as everybody else. We've given them the job of holding the line on societal change, giving them one tool to do it with, which is a gun, and then criticizing them for using the tool and criticizing them for not holding the line. The police cannot be blamed because they can't do the impossible. What we have to do is recognize that all of us must share the blame. How many times have you heard me say that? Our response, and the response of the Seattle is Dying, in the response of the Seattle is Dying video, is that we can find ways where everyone can become part of this breaker society. we can find ways where everyone can become a part of a toxic, dysfunctional, meaningless society. That's the problem. When you have no vision, the people perish. The Bible said that a few thousand years ago. We're watching it happening in real time on our streets. And what we want to do is ratchet up the command and control structure. We don't want to look for and open ourselves to solutions that happen outside of that way of thinking. We have been doing poverty programs in such a way that we blame the poor for their poverty. We don't recognize that poverty is an integral part of the structure of breaker society. If we want to end poverty, you have to end breaker society. I'm going to keep saying that. I feel like a broken record sometime, but I'm going to keep saying it until enough people understand that and start looking for other issues. I had I've talked about the situation with, in some of the earlier videos of John Rockefeller, the first, and he was already one of the richest men in the world, and he became the richest man because he sold an essential fuel. The essential fuel that he sold was kerosene. Kerosene was used to light your house. Kerosene was used to warm your house. And when you produce kerosene, there is a byproduct. And the byproduct is called gasoline. Well, there's no use for gasoline. So what they did in those days was, if you had a byproduct, you dumped it into the river. And so the story goes that that John Rockefeller, again, he's already one of the richest men in the world, is standing at one of his refining plants, and he's watching the tens of thousands of gallons of gasoline being dumped in the river. And he says, there's got to be something we can do with that stuff. Well, we found something that you can do with that stuff. And while he was already rich from kerosene, his riches from gasoline eclipsed that. That's not the question that we're asking ourselves. How do we find a society that actually works for all human beings and all living beings? What the Seattle is Dying video is asking is, how can we make this particular situation go away to the point that I don't have to see it anymore? It's not about making the problem go away. It's not about using command and control to force the problem to go somewhere else. It's not about trying to help homeless people become part of the mainstream when we know the mainstream is toxic and dysfunctional. It's about creating a society that is based on compassion, creating a society that's based on vision, that's creating a society that is based on catalyzing and stimulating the highest aspirations that we have as human beings. And there are ways of doing that. And I'm going to cover those ways in our next video. So, thank you so far, and I will look forward to you being part of the next video.
You are invited to participate in the discussions and activities that will define a positive future for all. We are at the cusp of the expansion of our human consciousness beyond the limitations of our past. Together, we can envision a world that embraces our human potential. Together, we can create a world that can truly work for all living beings.